I'll just be reading the bio note of our two very special guest speakers. The first speaker is Marvin Kaiser C. Marvin Kaiser C is a passionate Hokkien language instructor and foreign language enthusiast. After finishing a master's degree in applied economics from De La Salle University, he worked for 3 years in the financial data industry as an analyst, while simultaneously teaching Hokkien and doing Mandarin translation. His teaching career includes stints at Ateneo de Manila University and Kaisa Heritage Foundation, where he shares expertise in Hokkien with a diverse student body. Currently, he teaches Hokkien online and engages in business ventures with his friends. In his free time, Marvin likes to learn languages and do research on Hokkien. Part of his life advocacy is to help conserve and promote the Hokkien language among the Chinese Filipino community in the Philippines. So that's our first speaker for today. Let's do that first. So let's welcome Marvin, who's here right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marvin C. So today I'll be talking about an overview of Philippine Hokkien. So I guess just a disclaimer, I'm not a scholar. Everything I know, it's a result of years of trying to read many resources, mostly in Chinese, about Hokkien. And at the same time, so my pet project right now, by the way, is to develop an online dictionary for Philippine Hokkien, which I can introduce to everyone later. So, to start my talk, I want to talk about first my childhood living in a Chinese family. So, as a young kid, I was really interested in languages. So, I was interested in learning Mandarin. I started learning Spanish at that age, and I was also obviously interested in learning my own ancestral language, Hokkien. But by the way, this was the first decade of the 21st century. The internet was still starting, and I tried looking online for sources, and it was really hard. It was hard to find any resources online about Hokkien. So I got this screenshot from Wiktionary, which is like the dictionary form of Wikipedia. This was what it looked like back in 2008. And I remember going through this list of basic Hokkien words. And when I looked at it, some words were the same as the words I use at home. And then, when I looked at it, there were some words that were, what? These weren't words that I use. For example, this and that, it says tite, hite. But at home, I say tige, tige. Who, I say siya, but it's not there. Where, it says to'ui. I say tolo, it's not there. How, I say chua, it's also not there. So, I was like partly confused, partly doubting myself whether I was speaking Hokkien correctly, because looking at the internet, it's not the same. Here, I remember going through the Wikipedia article of Hokkien, and this is what it looked like in 2008. I couldn't really make sense of what that means. I think it's so complicated to me back then, and the resources weren't very clear on what it means. So, it took a while. I remember back in 2012, I bought a dictionary, the very big dictionary of Hokkien. And it wasn't until like maybe 2016 when my Mandarin improved more and I could read what was inside, and I finally discovered like how Hokkien works, as in the phonology, everything. So what I'd like to share with you guys today is based on what I've read, what I've studied so far, what I found out interviewing many people, many of our elders. And I would like to do this presentation in the form of debunking myths. So I listed several myths which I feel like some of us believe regarding Hokkien. And so I would like to start with the first myth. And this myth is myth number 1. Hokkien is spoken by people in the province of Hokkien in China, or Fujian. So we know that the dialect we speak is Hokkien, right? We call it Hokkien, and we know the province in China is Hokkien. So a lot of people have the idea that it's just the language spoken in that province. So for, I think, a lot of people who are familiar with the topic here, it's not. It's only a very small part of the province. So here I have a map of China, and this is Fujian. So as you guys know, most of Filipino Chinese come from this province. And this is a map of the languages in China, a rough map. And you can see here, that's mainland or Hokkien, which is the pink part. And if you look at the province of Fujian, here are the languages, not dialects by the way, since they don't understand each other. These are the languages roughly found in Fujian. So as you can see, the Fujian province is actually very diverse in languages. So the dialect we speak is Southern Min or Mainland, or we call it Hokkien. And there's so many other languages like Hakka, Eastern Min, Northern Min, Fujian Min, Kan, Wu, and Central Min. So is Hokkien the language in Fujian? Maybe we can say yes, but just the southeastern corner. Okay, right? So the next myth I'd like to debunk is Hokkien is spoken the same way everywhere. Siguro this is something that maybe the non-ethnically Chinese Pinoys may think na the Chinese here speak Hokkien, and they also hear the Singaporeans, the Chinese Singaporeans also speak Hokkien, the people in the mainland also speak Hokkien. Maybe it's the same. Well, obviously, a lot of people here know that it's not, and there are a lot of dialects of Hokkien. So firstly, I'd like to start with Hokkien speakers here. This is from Meta. So roughly, if you total all the numbers here, there are like 40 plus million speakers of Hokkien in the world. And it's quite a lot. Most of the speakers are in mainland China and Taiwan, understandably. So before I move on, I'd like to clarify a few things. What do we mean by these terms? Medyo kita na sa baba. Because we've been using these terms interchangeably, I've noticed, right? And I'd like us to clarify what do we mean by these terms. So I would like to start with mainland. Not sure if you've heard the term before, mainland, Banlam, Binlam, Southern Min, one of the most spoken branch of Chinese languages in the world. And Hokkien refers to the main variety of mainland, which is spoken in Southern Fujian, Taiwan, Southeast Asia. But Southern Min or mainland is sometimes used to refer to Hokkien as well. Hokkien is only found here in the Philippines. It's a term only used in the Philippines to refer to Hokkien. Hokkien, you often hear it in Singapore, Malaysia. It's a common term there. And you also use the word Amoy. And what is Amoy anyway? Amoy is just another term for Xiamen, right? So it's technically the dialect is Xiamen, but we also use it to refer to Hokkien in general. Why? Because it was perceived as the representative of Hokkien at that time. It was the port city kasi. And finally, so that's what we call Hokkien locally, right? And we use it to refer to Hokkien, specifically local Hokkien. And here are the dialects of Hokkien. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but there are two main dialects of Hokkien, as in the two ancestral old dialects of Hokkien. These are Quanzhou and Zhangzhou. And they have existed, well, for thousands of years. For 1,000 years plus. So here's a map. The red one on the north is Tuanzhou or Quanzhou, and the south is Zhangzhou or Jingzhou. So just a brief rundown of the dialects. So Quanzhou is the traditional prestige dialect of Hokkien, because it was the biggest port city at that time in most of China's history. And Zhangzhou is actually the dialect where we get the word Amoy. I'm not sure if you guys know that, because if you guys know, in our local Hokkien, we call Xiamen as Emeng. But in Zhangzhou, in the Zhangzhou region, they call Xiamen as Emui. So Emui became Amoy. And it's also the main source of what the Chinese in the early Spanish period spoke. And we know this because the Tagalog words that come from Chinese actually come from the Zhangzhou dialect or the Zhangzhou dialects. The most common example is Tikoy, right? Because Tikoy, if you guys know, in our local Hokkien right now, we say Tinke, right? But in the Zhangzhou dialects, it's Tinkwe, Tinkwe. So that's where we get Tikoy. And there's so many other words in Tagalog that come from the Zhangzhou dialect. So other famous dialects are the Xiamen dialect, which is based on the Tanghua dialect, and the Taiwanese dialects, which are a mixture between the Quanzhou and the Zhangzhou. Yeah. So I go fast to the Southeast Asian dialects. There's so many dialects here. Penang in Malaysia, Medan in Indonesia, Singapore is a mixture of a lot of Hokkien varieties, but it's more leaning to the Quanzhou dialect. So lastly, we've now arrived at the dialect that we speak, the Philippine dialect. So what's the Philippine dialect Hokkien? It's mainly based on the Jinjiang subdialect of Quanzhou. So what is Jinjiang? I feel like some of you guys may know that Jinjiang is where a lot of Filipino Chinese come from. In fact, maybe the majority of Filipino Chinese come from Jinjiang. So if we look at this map of Fujian, Jinjiang would be the one in the circle on the left side. It looks like a peninsula, right? It looks like a peninsula. So, based on what I know, a lot of us Filipino Chinese come from this eastern end of the peninsula, more of here. So here is Jiuxai, here is Jinggang. Mostly come from this side. And that is why our Philippine dialect, our Philippine Hokkien, so much resembles this place. So, the Jinjiang Hokkien, I feel like this is relevant to talk about Jinjiang Hokkien because this is, I would say, this is the dialect that a lot of mainlanders speak when they come to the Philippines, as in the recent ones, Jinjiang Hokkien. So it's a dialect spoken in Jinjiang or Jinggang and Shishi or Jiuxai. So for more than 1,000 years, by the way, Shishi was a small town in the county of Jinjiang, but the Chinese government split it from the jurisdiction of Jinjiang in 1987. So technically, we could also say it's still Jinjiang, it's still Jinggang. It's very, very similar to the Quanzhou dialect, except for some pronunciation and vocabulary differences. For example, in Jinjiang, they would say, for example, in Quanzhou dialect, so those are that kind of difference. And it's a dialect, I would say, the dialect spoken by the majority of Chinese immigrants to the Philippines in the 19th, 20th century, based on what I've read, because a lot, can I say most majority of the immigrants during this time came from Jinjiang. And almost all mainlanders immigrating to the Philippines that speak Hokkien can speak this dialect of Jinjiang, which is the most similar dialect to what we speak. So this again a map of Jinjiang, and Shishi is in this corner. Okay. So next myth, Hokkien in the Philippines is exactly the same as the Hokkien spoken in Jinjiang. I think some here may know that it's not exactly the same, although it sounds the same. It sounds almost similar. If you go to Jinjiang and Shishi and Jiuxai, you listen to the people there, you can sound like my grandmother, our grandparents, but of course there are some differences. So Philippine Hokkien is not the same as Jinjiang Hokkien. It's almost identical in pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary, but it's not 100% the same because they slightly diverge from each other. So I would attribute it to what happened in the 20th century because For example, a lot of the Filipino Chinese today, they came in the early 20th century, right? Before World War II, before the establishment of the People's Republic of China, when China was cut off, a lot of Chinese came during that time. And the Hokkien that they spoke from Xinjiang, they brought it to the Philippines, and then it slowly evolved. It gained influences from local languages. It also adapted elements of the Hokkien spoken already in that place before they got there. While Xinjiang Hokkien naman, Xinjiang Hokkien, it gained more Mandarin influences because it's part of the People's Republic of China. And it has a lot of influences from Quanzhou. It gained some influences from Quanzhou. So what do I mean by this? So let's give examples. In pronunciation, for example, Xinjiang dialect tends to use an unrounded sound. So instead of, I feel like a lot of Filipino Chinese Filipinos can relate to this because this is what my parents would call the Tailok Q when they speak Hokkien. Lanang kwento Tailok Q. For example, Jose. Jose. A more Tailok Q with Jose. So Jose is an unrounded vowel. So the O's become So Jinhe is not Ho. We say Jose. And also in younger speakers of Philippine Hokkien, there's a merger of the two O sounds. So in general Hokkien, there are two O sounds. So let me demonstrate by the example. I put there po. Po is po miai po. Ibe po. And the second one is po. Po as in cloth. So in general Hokkien, those are two different sounds. But in younger generations, it's merging to become the same sound, po. So that's the point of difference. And here, I'm not sure if this will be interesting for a lot of people. I've listed some unique Philippine Hokkien vocabulary because our Hokkien is not this. It's unique. So the first example, actually, I would say is pala. As far as I know, there's no other Chinese, there's no other Hokkien dialect that says pala. And it probably comes from the Spanish paga, I feel like. So, going back to Dr. Richard Cruz's presentation in the Hispano-Tagalog Spanish, I would like to, do you know in El Filibusterismo, the segments of El Filibusterismo that have Quiroga speaking in a Spanish Creole, one of the words that he used is pagalo in his broken Spanish. And I kind of feel like that's the ancestor of pala. Pagalo. Yung sabi niya. And other examples, kilo, makin, o bisin. Sige, kalabulo. Okay, so these are global adaptations of Spanish loanwords, which is, I would say, a part of the language already, part of the dialect already. And actually, what's very cool about compound words in Hokkien, locally derived, is the way it makes compounds between Tagalog and Chinese. So example is kantopak, butikan, lezuzai. And this one I got from my parents, tunitan, tunikway, so tornillo, and then tan became tunitan. Kway, tornillo and kway became tunikway. Lechugas and cai became lezuzai. Buti and kan became butikan. So it's really interesting how the creativity of our ancestors that immigrated here. And also, I'd like to show some local coinages. I would call them local coinages because I can't find them in other dialects. Like Hoenn. I can't find in any source where it says that Hoenn is part of their dialect. I can only find it in Philippine Hokkien. Also, Pazi, Piang, yeah. It kind of seems like maybe only us say Piang. But last month, by the way, I went to China, and our driver from Xinjiang somehow he understood the word pian. Then that got me confused because I know Xinjiang doesn't use pian. Then I was thinking, oh, he went to the Philippines. He stayed for Philippines for a few years, so maybe he picked it up from the Filipino Chinese he lived with. Then Sin Suan, Jing. So these words, I really can't find it in other dialects. And lastly, I'd like to show you guys some Hokkien words with local meanings. So they exist in other dialects. It's just that it's a different meaning. For example, 恰头, we use it as driver, but elsewhere it means bus stop. But I've heard from a Malaysian that it's an old word to mean driver in their place. So maybe it's not uniquely Filipino. So tao, we say so tao for remainder. But if I look at in a Hokkien dictionary, this program, so I don't really know where we got the word so tao to mean remainder. Maybe it means the same thing in Xinjiang. The thing about it is the dialect in Xinjiang, the resources are really scarce to document how the language is used in Xinjiang. So maybe it's possible that some of the words that I'm talking about are actually Xinjiang words. Also, Huanapo is local made or domestic made in the Philippines, but it means a foreign woman in other dialects. Kebin. So I can't, the resources I've seen, they define it like to pass a barrier, to pass an ordeal. It kind of seems like only here that we use it to mean to pass away. And that's it, home, to get sick. Elsewhere it means terrible. So there's also a lot of Mandarinized vocabulary in Xinjiang. So Mandarinized vocabulary, I'm not saying that Philippine Hokkien does not use Mandarinized vocabulary. I mean, there's more emphasis in Xinjiang Hokkien to use Mandarin vocabulary because they've lived through that period where Mandarin was being heavily promoted in China. So one example is Bin Tao, we say Bin Tao, they say Mi Pao. Although there's arguments to say Mi Pao is an early borrowing because we can find it in early Taiwanese sources in the early 20th century that already records the word Mi Pao. Siu, this Siu is, for example, Siu Gao, Siu Ge Gao, like too good. Say Tai Gao, Tai Ho Se, Tai Xiong. That's obviously a Mandarin influence from Tai Hao. Gua Yi, we say Gua Yi. A lot of my mainland friends say Tam Sim. You can say it here naman, Tam Sim. We say Pian. The more Mandarin speaks type, Chia Tao, we say Chia Tao. The more Mandarin is Siki. So there's a lot of more Mandarin influence here. And I didn't list it here, but there are also a lot of Tagalog words in Hokkien. Although it's sort of a, I would say it's sort of a, can be a debate which words are really Hokkien and which words are just code switching. So that's why I didn't put it in this presentation. And the next myth I would like to tackle is that the Hokkien spoken by Chinese Filipinos are exactly the same. This one is something I believed for many years until I started to research Hokkien really. As in like trying to ask a lot of people how they say things. And I found out that, we're more diverse than I thought. So, firstly, Chinese Filipinos with origins not from Xinjiang area. I have a friend from Osamis, that's in Mindanao. And I noticed his dialect is very Xiamen, it's very Amoy. For example, I say Lo Qi for mouse, he says Niao Cu, things like that. So I later found out that it seems like there was a wave of more Tangwa, I think, immigrants to northern Mindanao, and that's why this happened. And the second one is Quanzhou leading and Xiamen leading pronunciation. This is my terminology, by the way. Quanzhou leading, Xiamen leading, because there are variations in the way we pronounce Hokkien words that are either closer to Quanzhou pronunciation and either closer to Xiamen pronunciation. Examples, for example, I personally say Bo Mui, then I know some people say Bo Ing, some people say Tao Jing, some people say Tao Jing. Those are easy examples. There are so many examples. For example, I say Segwe, some people say Sikwe, some people say Kosi. I say Kosi, some people say Kosu. That's the EU difference. So, not just that, not just the pronunciation, but also vocabulary in different families. So, while researching personally Hokkien, I also tried asking, how do you say the word for this? How do you say the word for this? And even within the Metro Manila context, people are giving me different answers. For example, one example is Ni. Ni. In the dictionary, if you look at ni, it will say the word for ni is kakao. But my dad says guatao. Then my uncle, my ape, he says kaguatao. So I now have guatao, kaguatao, kagutao, and even kakao, kakao, not kakao, kakao. So there's so many variations. And it's so amazing that we haven't noticed it. It's like when we talk to each other within the Filipino Chinese community, we just assume that we all say the same way when we don't really. And also, I would like to include here the influences of Christian hymnals written in Amoy, in Xiamen pronunciation in the Protestant communities, because of the books that they use. It's written in Amoy romanization. It has influenced also a bit how they speak. So one good example is Boksu, which is the word for pastor. And if you base it on the actual, supposedly, Jinjiang pronunciation of it, the Su there is supposed to be a C. So it's a Boksi. But no one here really says Boksi, it says Boksu, because it's mostly used by Protestant communities, so it became Boksi. So there's also influence there. And then also myth number 5, there's no way to write Hokkien words. This is one thing my classmate told me in high school, I remember. It's like, what were you doing? My classmate asked me. I'm trying to write Hokkien. There's no way to write Hokkien kaya. Thus I showed him. I tried to write it in characters. So here is an example of many ways to write Hokkien. This is so many ways. So this is the English, obviously it's not Hokkien. This is a random sentence that I thought of. How did you think of going there to look for him? So the POJ and Tailo is the most common way to Romanize Hokkien in the Hokkien world. So you can see examples there. Minnan Pinyin is the most common way to Romanize it. At least the resources I see in mainland China usually use Minnan Pinyin in dictionaries, books. And Lanam is the one developed by Wilkinson, which I also use for teaching Hokkien, which I find very convenient, by the way. And I called it random. I don't know what to call it. It's like how you just try to write Hokkien, just trying to spell it out. For example, you're trying to text a family member, you just want to write it Hokkien. Just try to spell it how you think it's spelled. And it's a bit hard because you have to decipher each syllable. Or what are you trying to say? So, and also we try to spell it differently. So, there are many ways to write Hokkien. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. For example, in random one, I have to decipher it. The Lanang one, it's very convenient for tones. POJ and Tailo, it's very convenient for reading text from other dialects. So people speaking other dialects of Hokkien, if they write Hokkien, you can still read it because it's standardized, the tone marks. As in, even though they pronounce the tones differently, you can still read them in your own dialect, and that's the advantage. So last myth, this is not myth, this is a conclusion. So my conclusion here is that Philippine Hokkien is quite unique. And the sad thing is that resources to learn Philippine Hokkien are scarce if existing. When I was trying to learn about Hokkien, I tried to scour all the resources. Most of the resources are about Hokkien in Xiamen or Hokkien in Taiwan. And most of them are in Chinese, which is not really accessible for everyone here. And I had to improve my Mandarin just to access those resources. So hopefully in the future, there are more resources to learn our version, our dialect Hokkien. And yeah, there is a need to pass down and preserve it because it is really a part of our heritage. And I hope my pet projects are helping a bit. As I said, I'm trying to develop a online dictionary of Philippine Hokkien, which is actually already functioning, although it's not fully edited because currently it has like 6,500 words and I'm not yet done. And it's trying to collate all the words that are actually used here in the Philippines and not just copy-pasting from random dictionaries. So that's my small contribution, if ever, on passing down this language of ours, this dialect of ours, and preserving it. And I guess that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
Alright, so thank you, Marvin, for that really interesting talk. Now we move on to the second part of the panel discussion, in which we will be inviting another presenter. Okay, so our next presenter is Gilbert J. Honke. He's an instructor at the Department of Communication at Ateneo de Manila University. Part of his research interests concentrates on Asian studies, as well as the relationship of media, communication, and the diaspora. His works on the diaspora concentrate on the Chinese and Indian diasporas in the Philippines. Okay, so without further ado, let's welcome Gilbert.
Hello everyone, Tay Erho. So, just a little bit of background. I stand before you as a Chinoy. I'm very proud to be Chinoy. I graduated from Charisha College. But the thing is, as an academic in diaspora studies, I'm actually an Indian studies major. So, people often ask me, di ba Chinoy ka, so why are you doing studies on Indian studies? And my response to them is, di bang kepo nga? But the formal answer is, you know, I believe that Chinoys can be whoever they want to be as long as they set their mind to it. I decided to become an Indian studies major, but in my journey in studying about the Indian diaspora, all of my studies actually reflect back to my Chinoyness, which is why we are here today and why I am here today. So it's not necessarily saying that I have, you know, rejected any of my Chinoyness, di ba? Pagiging Chinoy ko, ang pagiging Pinoy ko. And the reason why I have to give you this kind of background is because all of these things fall under the very sociological topic that we call belonging. So good afternoon, I'm going to discuss Lanangwe and how people use Lanangwe to belong in the Chinoy community. So most of the talks that you heard today or in the next days, these topics often discuss Lanangwe as a language because it is a language, di ba? Parang it has several dialects. Marvin was able to give you a very, very comprehensive introduction just a while ago, di ba? So sabi ko, maybe it would be nice to look at Lanangwe from a different perspective. And apart from it being a language, I want you to think of Lanangwe as currency. Diba? Currency, diba? Coins, bills, hindi naman ganun. But it is a currency for people to belong. So that is where I'm coming from a very sociological aspect. This is also an analogy that I use whenever I explain Pierre Bourdieu's forms of capital. Diba? So you exchange it, and then when people recognize it as a valuable currency of sorts, and then they will say, okay, belong ta sa amin. Diba? Eh, kung hindi talaga kayo belong, mag-ginagpilitin. Okay, so let's ask several questions. Some seemingly easy questions, pero mahirap po silang sagutin. Diba? So the main question I want to ask is, how does Lanangwe facilitate belonging in the Chinoy community, which is actually the title of the presentation? Some questions would be, how do we use Lanangwe? How do we use it as a currency of sorts? And who uses it? Kasi later, basta may twist dyan, nagugulatan na kayo. So, you know, for people who know me, alam niyo naman ako, I like the theatrics. Diba? So, by the way pala, I'm also involved in the Chinoy community, just in case you're questioning my Chinoyness. I am very active as a mentor in the Moving Actors Society of Charisha College, the longest running theater group in my alma mater. So, anyway, going back, the third question I want to ask is, so what is its value in the Chinoy community? Kasi laging tinatanong, especially in all the 7 Manong Po movies, diba? Why do I have to learn Chinese, di ba? Just because I'm learning Chinese at one of the many languages in the Sinitic language family, di ba? Parang why do I have to learn Mandarin? Why do I have to learn Lanangwe, di ba? Parang is it going to affect my Chinese-ness? Tapos, ayan na, naglayas na siya. Tapos, ayan na, si Vilma Santos na siya. So, ayan. Okay, so before we go to the main discussion, I want to discuss briefly the concept of belonging. So you will understand whenever I use these terms later. Diba? So belonging, according to the scholar Johan of Charnechka, belonging has three dimensions. Parang there are three major things that will help us belong to a certain group of people. The normal discussion is pabaliktad, commonalities, mutualities, attachments. But I challenge that. What do you challenge now? So I challenge that thought because in the diasporic context, and this is drawing also from my research on the Indian diaspora, it's actually pabaliktad. The diaspora often prioritizes the attachments, which are the material or immaterial things that we carry with ourselves. Yung mga bagay na pag umalis ka, hindi mo siya dala-dala. Pag nasa airplane ka, kailangan nasa hand carry mo siya. Yung mga ganon. So those are attachments. In the social science context, this could be your culture, this could be your family, this could be the memories that you bring, so on and so forth. Mga attachments mo that you bring with you, either material or immaterial, andito or andito, di ba? When you move somewhere. Second are mutualities. These are the allegiances or the obligations that we perform para alam natin kung saan tayo lulugar sa buhay ng may buhay. Diba? So, kunyari, lalo na in a very Confucian society, diba? The five relations are very important. Diba? Sino ang higher rank, lower rank? Angkal mo ba siya? Angkal sa tuhod? Ako sa tuhod, hindi ko rin alam. Diba? So, pwede rin namang organizational mutualities. Kunyari, president ba siya? Vice ba siya? Ano ba siya, secretary ba siya, so how do you treat them? Yes, I know you treat them as people, pero syempre when it comes to like the responsibilities that you give them or what they must perform, it depends on what is their role in that community or in that group. And finally, commonalities. These are the things that are the same. Kunyari, pareho ba kayo ng pinag-aralan na school? Pareho ba kayong may interest in this or that? Diba? Normally, kaya commonalities yung inuuna in the literature kasi it's the easiest way for you to find someone to belong with. Na, uy, mahilig ka sa anime? Ako mahilig din ako sa anime. Tara, sige, let's be leagues together. Parang gano'n. Diba? So, kaya lang, again, in the diaspora, it's usually baliktad. And I'll show you why right now. Okay, so Lanang and the Chinoys. First, di ba sabi ko, pinaka-important yung attachment. Di ba? Ang hirap kasing ma-attach. Pero minsan, kailangan mo talagang ma-attach sa mga bagay-bagay. So you will know what matters to you and your humanness. Di ba? So, for the diaspora, for the Chinese diaspora here, Hokkien or Lanang Ue, di ba? Hokkien kasi in its earlier form, di ba? Hokkien naman talaga siya, di ba? So Hokkien as an attachment, it was brought from China. It was the foundation of the Lanang Ue that we know today. Diba? So it is, and again, I think Marvin also mentioned a while ago na some people are asking about how do you like write Hokkien? Is there a way to preserve it? Kasi ang hirap-hirap nga na generally we don't write it. Diba? Kaya yung classmate mo na medyo ma-attitude, diba? Sabi niya, how can you write it? Diba? Pero totoo naman talaga na even it was only later in my life na I discovered na, wow, it's so cool, pwede pala, like, and there are certain characters na only for this Lanang Ue or Hokkien pala siya, ganyan, na para sa countries na may like special characters or something, di ba? And right now you can see it. I understand that we are having a hard time preserving it. It's so nice that we're having the symposium as well, so all of us are more aware, di ba, of the status maybe of Lanang Ue, so on and so forth. But in diaspora studies kasi, oftentimes, pagdating ng second generation, lalo na pag third generation, one of the first aspects of culture to go away is the language. Kasi pag lumaki ka na in a different country, you grow up, oftentimes in order to adapt, di ba? You try to learn, or there's so much focus on the language of the host land, di ba? So kunyari, you learn English or Filipino to belong here in the Philippines, and I think all of us do naman, di ba? Kasi nasa educational system siya. But it's so surprising that even after so many generations, despite the hardships that we faced in preserving it, many of us, despite differences in fluency, but we still speak it everywhere. Diba? And it is honestly an anomaly. Kasi like for me, I do studies about the Indians. Diba? The Indians, they have formal ways to learn their language. Kasi if you know India, sobrang daming writing systems in India. There are many formal ways. Yun nga, may mga material. You check, may mga textbooks, may mga tutorials. Some of them even go to India once in a while. But you know what? I speak better Hindi than some of them. Yeah, I'm so proud of that. Yeah. So, nagugulat sila na, why do you speak Hindi? Ako kailangan ko pong aralin kasi hindi po ako mapapasa ng masters ko. Kasi I took my master's in Asian Studies, specializing in South Asia, tapos may language component kami doon. So, kung dito ko siya kinasa, hindi ko po papasa. Diba? So, sabi ko, it was a matter of necessity. Diba? Pero for them, kasi parang the pressure is more of, you have to learn English kasi English yung lingua franca of the business world or whatever, or you have to learn Filipino kasi para hindi ka tatawaging Bombay or 5-6 of the Filipinos. Kasi they don't like that, by the way. Please don't use those words. Okay? So, for us naman, going back to the Chinoys, it is a very important attachment to the point that until now, we still speak it. Diba? And the accent is still giving. Diba? So, we have to give ourselves a round of applause for that. Diba? So second, Lanang Way as a commonality. Diba? So, it is contributing to the Chinese-ness. Diba? So, kasi a lot of people have discussions of identity. Kala nila pag identity, eto na, but identity is not. It's not a monolithic idea, it's more of a spectrum. And that spectrum, what dictates that spectrum is your personal understanding, or sometimes if there is an institution that will tell you guidelines on the aspects that contribute to that identity. So, kunyari for our land ng identity is the land ng ness, or the Chinoy-ness, yung mga may ness sa dulo. For the Indians, it's Indian-ness, di ba? Or Filipino-ness. Ito ang tinatanong ko lagi sa students ko who do studies about Filipinos naman. Kunyari, Phil-Ams, di ba? Just because kumain ka ng lumpia, does it make you Filipino? You like lumpia, you like adobo, but does it make you Filipino? Not necessarily. But you can belong kasi kinakain mo rin yung food that they like, di ba? So for us, one of the many things that makes us Lanang people or Chinoy is the language, di ba? So I think several studies have also, obviously has done so many studies linking the idea of identity and language. Third is, ito yung medyo controversial, di ba? Lanang Way and mutualities. So in Chinoy, in Hokkien or in Lanang Way, this is part of how we huanang, di ba? This is one of the terms that I feel is so interesting kasi dito lumalabas yung kaming judgmental natin minsan. But not to this on my community or our community, but it is a way for us to understand who belongs and who does not. Diba? It happens in any group. Okay, huwag kayong denial dyan. Okay? So, Lanang Way and mutualities, these are the obligations surrounding teaching the language. Kasi nga attachment siya na parang, I need to teach my children this kasi kung hindi, I failed as a parent. Yung mga ganon. Or schools, Chinoy schools, di ba? They focus on Mandarin more, but lalo na in kinder, at least in my experience in Championship College, in kinder, they simultaneously teach Hokkien and Mandarin. Tapos, which is actually, if you think about it, so confusing, pero it works. Diba? And that is also how I learned Hokkien or Lanang Way, both at home and in school. Diba? Kasi yun nga, it's so hard to write it. I never saw my teachers write, pero they just talk to us. Diba? Na parang, di ba, sigebo, diba? Di kikiatse, di ka ikong sorry, or whatever, diba? But kinder, sweat, bin, diba? I know you're laughing, but that's how we learn. That's why you're here today. Diba? You have to be proud of that. And most Chinoy schools are doing a great job, diba? And it's a difficult task eh. So, the other part of it na I feel is, baka pwede pag-isipan, is expectations of how Chinoy should treat each other. So this is from the concepts of performance and position by Irving Goffman, 1959. Okay, so, meron kasing instances na when you go, we do it subconsciously, na, Chinese siya, tapos ang tatanungin is, help kong Lanang Way. Judgmental din kayo. But again, it is for us to understand how our community works. Diba? This is normal. Okay? So please do not feel sorry. It's normal in any community. Diba? Tapos, the expectations come, kunyari, marunong siya Lanang Way, bibigyan niya dapat tayo ng discount. Right? So it comes, these are the cultural perceptions that come with language use, diba? So this is forming mutualities, not necessarily directly related to language, but it comes from the basis of, kasi marunong siya ng language na ganito, therefore, diba? So it's more of an indirect kind of thing. Pero, apart from these three dimensions of belonging that I mentioned, there are other nuances to the diasporic experience that help us understand paano nga ba natin ginagamit yung lanangwe para mag-belong tayong lahat, para maging one happy family tayo, di ba? Tapos yearly, pinapakita natin siya during Mr. and Miss Chinatown, di ba? So, first is, kaya naging very big attachment yung lanangwe because of the constant experience of being othered by Filipinos through time. I think this is known to many of us, diba? If you study history well, maaalala niyo yan, diba? Na this is also partly why so, sorry, again, ito talaga yung problema ng nagdaldan, di ba? Daming words. Pero sige, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so, the othering of Chinoys has forced us to have a higher sense of needing to have this community spirit. Diba? Na parang, dapat Chinoy should stick together. Tapos, yung language na ginagamit natin has become, and ginagamit nyo rin. So, dahil minsan, di ba, if there are some people in your house na ayaw nyong malaman, di ba? Or kanyari, pag you study in a Chinese school, tapos, you study in a Chinese school, tapos sa college, you study in a, like, you studied in a more international community, kunyari, the Big Four or whatever. Tapos, if you want to say something about this other, pero yung gagawin to kasi bad to, okay? Pero, this is a real life example. May sasabihin kayo something about this classmate that you don't like, di ba? Eh, hindi siya Chinoy. Tapos, yung isa mong BFF sa classroom, Chinoy, nagaling dun sa kabilang Chinese school. Anong gagawin nyo? Shigeo. Hindi, siya pili na naman rin sabihin na expletives, di ba? So, ayun, di ba? But you know what I mean, di ba? So that is also a way that we practice belonging, di ba? Using language to determine the in-group and the out-group, di ba? Ito yung mga sociological language na. Okay. Second is, how do they, this is derived from Will's study about language and identity. How do they use language? Kasi remember, as Chinoys, we speak so many languages, and this is something that I take pride in, di ba? Most of us speak a degree of Filipino, English, Lanangwe, and Mandarin. Tapos sometimes may konting Cantonese ba dyan or whatever, or a regional language if you have lived in the Philippines or may probinsya kayo somewhere in the Philippines, di ba? So, it's a matter of how do I belong in this very pluralistic community. Do I, parang in a day's life, how many, parang gano'ng kalaking percent that I will use Lanangwe, gano'ng kalaking percent do I have to use English or Filipino, diba? So we have these negotiations with ourselves and language use every day, but we do it automatically, kaya you don't get tired of doing it kasi you probably grew up doing it already. Nasanay na lang tayo sa sistema. Third is assimilation vis-a-vis Wanagong. So, and I don't like using this term, but it is a term that we use in the community. There are, and ako rin, I have relatives na they're quote-unquote less Chinese, so to speak, quote-unquote. Kasi I believe they're not, pero some people say they are less Chinese. Kasi some of my cousins, lalo na if they didn't grow up in Metro Manila where there's a concentration of Chinoys, hindi sila very, they probably didn't study at Chinese school, they probably were not taught how to speak Lanangwe. Pero, does it make them less Chinoy? Diba? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. But again, it's a spectrum, it's more subjective, diba? So, yun nga, diba? Parang how does it affect their Chineseness? Kunyari, hindi sila marunong maglanangwe, pero everything else about the culture alam nila. Kunyari, baka mas alam pa nila sa inyo about the funeral rites of the Chinoys. So, di ba, alam nila, day 1, ganito gagawin, day 2, ganito gagawin. Marunong din sila mag-origami ng gold. O, di ba, yung mga gano'n. Yung gold na sinusunog yung shoki mo. Di ba, baka mas marunong pa sila sa inyo. Does it make them more or less Chinoy? Or ikaw, dahil hindi mo alam yung ritual sa'yo, does it make you less Chinoy? Di ba? So, those are the questions that, there are no definitive answers, by the way. I'm just letting you think more, lalo na pag Chinoy, about your own identity. And finally, Chinoy, there are Chinoys that do not wish to belong to the Chinoy community because of certain cultural norms. Diba? And this is more of a deliberate decision na I have friends who are like that, na sobrang rigid daw ng this culture, that culture. Konti na lang, alam mo may caste system na rin para sa India, pero hindi naman. Diba? But there is a deliberate decision to move away. Diba? And sometimes, because there's a deliberate decision, it affects their language use. Kasi the crowd that they now feel that they belong to is not the same crowd that uses the same language. Pero baka alam nila, andyan lang sa little crannies ng kanilang brain. Diba? Pero it does affect language use and belonging. From a more educational perspective, eto nga, why rin lang ng diba? Diba Mandarin is the lingua franca of the Chinese world, the Sinitic world, diba? And it is more practical, lalo if you're gonna engage in business or what. Tapos, when you tell people, kasi it's part of your identity, it does not mean anything to some Chinoys, to be honest, diba? But it's just a language. But ang sasagot pa nila sa inyo is, yung Chinoyness ay nasa dugo ko, nasa genetics ko. Diba? Kasi again, identity and belonging. Well, belonging is more procedural or processual. Identity is more ascribed. So sa kanila, Chinoy pa rin naman ako kahit nabuhay akong Lanangwe. Hindi ako Panago or whatever. Diba? So, Lanangwe kasi it is also a heritage language that I feel from a linguistic point of view must be preserved. Diba? And it is a lingua franca of so many communities. But the problem of that is the lack of standardization, which I feel many speakers have mentioned and many speakers will continue to mention for the next 2 days. Diba? And finally, there is a lack of Lanangwe cultural products or Hokkien cultural products. Although I understand that this might be changing, again, some of the speakers might be challenging this, and I'm happy that they are challenging this. Diba? Kasi kailangan natin yan. Now, this is the twist that I am telling you. So, I've been talking a lot about the Chinoys, di ba? Chinoys, mga taong katulad ko, tulad ng majority of you. But I want to introduce, hindi to yung official name nila, ha? Binarrow ko lang tong term dun sa kaibigan ko. We've been talking about the Phil Chais. Now, look at the Phil Chais. Okay? Kaibigan ko to from Chiang Mai. She's here in Filipina. The reason why nag-aral siya sa Chinese school is because malapit sila doon. And because, you know, Chiang Kai-shek College is one of the, syempre, di ba, premier, syempre, binibida ka talaga yung alma mater ko kasi so proud, di ba? One of the premier Chinese schools in the Philippines, among many other good Chinese schools in the Philippines. Diba? Baka naman territorial tayo, di ba, with these Chinese schools. But yes, there are, and I'm happy kasi despite these schools being catered to the diaspora, they are not closing their doors to other people. Kasi education is for everyone naman talaga. I believe education is a right, di ba? So, these schools have opened their doors to non-Chinoys. And there are a couple of those na talagang walang drop of Chinese-ness, di ba? Sa genetics nila or what. Pero minsan, dahil nag-aral sila doon, and sometimes maybe they take their lessons well, sometimes they speak better than the Chinoys. Kasi may kilala akong gano'n na pag pinikit mo yung mata mo, tapos nakatalikod ka, pikit na talikod pa, di ba? Tapos nagsalita siya both Lanangwe and Mandarin, hindi mo akalain na hindi talaga siya Chinese. As in, mas magaling pa siya dun sa iba na pure Chinese, pero quote-unquote panagong according to their parents daw. Di ba? So, ngayon, how does this affect belonging? Di ba? Well, hindi, of course, because of the other things that make Chinoys Chinese, di ba, yung Chinese-ness. Language is just one of those. So, ang nangyayari dito is, instead of language being used as an attachment or source, it's used more as a commonality. That is what is highlighted. Kasi, they use this na parang, oh, marunong din ako mag-Chinese. It's like, oh, marunong din ako mag-English. Oh, marunong din ako mag-Spanish or whatever. But, kunyari, if you go to, like, Japan, di ba, very malakas yung cultural identity nila, just because you speak Nihongo, they will never accept you as Nihonjin. Gaijin ka forever, di ba? Or foreigner, Gaijin, di ba? So, sa atin, may pagkaganon kasi again, this is the way that you understand in-group and out-group. So, ang ginagawa nila is, it does facilitate belonging kasi well, it is not part of their heritage, but it facilitates belonging more of us a functional extent, and sometimes a little bit of a cultural extent. So, ang nangyayari, baliktad. Itong friend ko na Filipina, sinasabi niya sa akin, alam mo minsan, I grew up with all of you kasi ng mga Chinoys, minsan iniisip ko na nga kung Chinoy na rin ako o hindi. Diba? Parang nagkaroon ng reverse identity crisis kasi usually you hear this from the diaspora na, am I Filipino or Chinese? Sa kanya naging baliktad, Chinoy ba ako o hindi? Diba? Pero Pinay na Pinay siya. Diba? Tapos nag-anak pa siya sa Taiwan, ng Chinese. So magaling din, super galing na niya mag-Mandarin. Pero yun nga, it's more of a functional thing kasi this is using language for communication and to some certain extent na parang understanding of culture as well. Diba? Okay. So, ano ngayon? Wala. Joke. Ano ngayon? Hindi, syempre meron niyang significance of study. Di ba? So, ano yung significance niya? So, Lanaway, just to wrap it up, it's not just used for communication, but it's a marker of identity that facilitates belonging. Okay? So, Lanaway is also conditioned, or it conditions people certain expectations that leads to relationship building. Ito yung di mo makuhala, diba? How do you look at people? Gina-judge man na ba siya agad dahil magaling siyang maglanang way o hindi? O diba? Or what? Diba? Third, lanang way is not solely used by Chinoy. So please be very careful when you're using them as a code language to talk about someone else. Meron din naman akong friend, quote-unquote, sutsiya siya. Again, some people like the term, some people don't like it. Eto, yan, 50% Filipino, 50% Chinese siya. Pero yung nakuha niyang physical features, more of dun sa kabilang side. So, nag-work siya, tapos may mga sa retail, tapos may mga kek siya, may mga customers na Chinoy, linalait yung benta nilang damit. Siyempre, naiintindihan niya, sumagot siya, nagulat, diba? So, be very careful when using lanagwe in public. And finally, the most important thing, and I guess which is also why we have this symposium, is we do have constant struggles to preserve it. Yes, it is a feat that we have preserved it for like generations and decades, maybe a century or more, but it is still a struggle until today, and again, it stems from the lack of standard form, especially the lack of standard written form. But because of globalization and because of more exposure, more understanding of other culture, diba, and our own culture as well, maybe we can start also to improve the way that we learn or improve that the ways that we teach or pass on this lanangwe for not just for the Chinoy community but also for language in general and for society. Thank you so much, and I hope you very much. Thank you.
So we're now going to open this floor for some questions, I guess. But before you guys have the opportunity to ask some questions, maybe maybe Marvin wants to respond to Gilbert's. Yeah, you can like talk about it with each other first before we open the floor to everyone. And you guys can also have your notepads with you, so you can actually write some questions on your pad anonymously or non-anonymously. Okay, so yeah, feel free to ask each other some questions.
Wow! Yeah, I'm so surprised by I'm using the word comprehensiveness of the study, diba? So I also learned a lot of things from him about your research in terms of the terminology, in terms of the origins, diba? Yeah. But can you again, what pushed you? I know all of us are interested in Lanang or Hokkien, but what really pushed you to do such a comprehensive research or study about Lanang? It's more of a personal.
Well, I think it started as an overall interest in language. At the same time, an interest in understanding better my ancestors, my grandparents who spoke them. They were from Tingkang, Jepsay. So I wanted to understand what did they really speak, what dialect did they really speak. And at the same time, also my belief that it should be preserved and passed down. So I need to know what we're passing down. And at the same time, also in terms of need, because I'm currently teaching Hokkien, so I need to know what I'm teaching. So I need to inform myself.
Yeah, ano naman, the reason why I asked also, kasi I sometimes teach Lanangwe once in a while, tapos parang yung, I was so intrigued by the variations that you introduced, which obviously I'm aware also, kasi just when you go to Binondo, so many variations already of Lanangwe. Sa akin kasi, parang I had a student before, she's pure Pinay, but now married to Chinoy. Tapos, parang wala namang kasi yung Great Wall sa kanila. So, good for them. Diba? Pero, sa kanila naman ng family ko guys, kasi si Angkong Ama, they don't understand English or Filipino too well. So, baka if you can learn kahit super basic Lanangwe, it might help you belong in our family. Na parang hindi na ostracize one or the other when we have family gatherings. Tapos, so, may nag-refer sa kanya sa akin. So, over the pandemic until now, parang we have sometimes may weekly lessons. Kaya mas mahirap na kasi you're all doing face-to-face work na. And then, pero success story ko siya kasi she learned Hokkien or Lanangwe to a level na she's better than everyone in the family. Nagulat din ako doon. Pero, okay. It's not naman boasting myself. It's more of, I also did not expect. Pero it's more of, siguro 10% ako, 90% siya. Yun na. So, 90% is yung willingness niya to practice with, and no one in her house speaks it. Kasi nga, she's not Chinoy. So, meron siyang mga friends na Chinoy, kinakausap niya lagi, nag-video call sila over the pandemic. Tapos, syempre, when she visits nung time na mag-engage pa lang sila, diba? Sir silahan. So, nung we attended her wedding kasi. So, yun. And then, tawag doon, yun nga, parang she learned it just by practicing. So, nagulat din ako na, wow, parang, okay, so I must be doing something right, but you're doing something better. Yun yung sinabi ko sa kanya. So, parang, sa kanya kasi yung family ng guy has, I think, more of an Amoy variant ata. So, there are times na nag-aaway kami kasi I say it one way and she says, but my husband's family says it this way.
Give an example.
Yung binigay mo kanina, Posi and Posu, Titya, Tutya. Yung mga ganong...
Tutya is very Siam.
Yeah. So, yun. I found it interesting kasi ako dapat yung nagtuturo sa kanya, pero I'm learning a lot of things from her as well. Diba? So, it's give and take. So, I think that's the beauty of teaching, diba? Parang just because you're the teacher doesn't mean you know everything. Diba? You learn a lot from your students as well.
Same thing with me. I have a student who's a pure Pinoy who has a Chinese girlfriend and they're planning to get married. And then we started from very basic Hokkien to now he speaks fully Hokkien whenever I talk to him online. And every time I teach him a new word, what he'd do is he'd ask his girlfriend if you know this word. And then sometimes, there are times wherein the girlfriend would say, we don't say it like that, we say it like this. Tapos sabihin ko yung guy, the student, he will tell me, I prefer to say it the way my girlfriend says it, not the way you say it.
So I think that's one of the interesting things about
But in my students, I'm very open to the variants, to all the possibilities, the ways that you can say it.
So I guess we can bring back our discussion to identity because the theme of this panel is language and identity. And I know that at least the way we presented, like you and me, we kind of like have some overlaps, but there are also some divergences in how we position ourselves. Like at least in your presentation, it's very clear that you chose to position yourself as more Chinoy identity. Well, I'm not so sure, but it's definitely not as Chinoy-ish as him, right? But maybe you could also kind of like state our positionalities first before we continue the discussion. So for me, I identify more as Lanang, a little bit less Chinoy but more Lanang. But Lanang here doesn't mean Chinese, it's just Chinese with quotation marks. Local Chinese, Filipino Chinese, Phil-Chai, for me it's Lanang. Maybe Marvin would like to say your positionality.
I mean, definitely, I would say, Lanang kasi I've been saying this since I was a kid. In terms of Chinoy, I think it depends on what you mean. I think when Kaisa coined the word Chinoy, it was used to refer to Filipino Chinese in general. So it kind of Chinese Filipino in general. So it's definitely a big overlap with how we view what Lanang is. So I think we could say I could say naman that I'm Wasilanang and Chinoy at the same
Yeah,
time.
it doesn't have to be exclusive, like I said, right? I think that was one of the key points I think we've learned is that identity doesn't have to be like a one-on-one like relationship. I'm Filipino, I'm only Filipino, but at least in our community, I think there's a lot of like room for like negotiating. Like sometimes it's very specific situations, like I mentioned. Sometimes when I'm with my mainland Chinese friends from Emon or Team Kang, I would say I'm Chinese. But then when I'm here, maybe I'll say I'm more Filipino. But then with like Lanang community members, I'll say I'm Lanang. Right? So I think, yeah, more fluid in that sense.
Yeah. I identify as Lanang when I'm speaking Lanang way. But pag sa Filipinos, yung kausap ko, just to make them understand, I tell them I'm Chinoy, specifically Chinese Filipino, like as quite like
I'm not sure if it's a proscribed term, pero in practice though, I always say I'm Philchai.
Yeah.
As in the shortened word, Philchai.
Right, I think that's also what we used to grow up with. Like my dad and my mom always saying Philchai versus other groups who had Chinese heritage. So yeah, so I guess the other question is how does language figure in all of this, right? The identity making process. Because like you mentioned that Nanaway is used for Chinoy identity building as well. But for me, in my perspective, it's also used to build like Lanang identity. Like when you say, the first thing people ask you to identify or more whether you're Lanang or not is he Lanang ba? Diba? That's the first thing you ask, right? Or yeah, Lanang ba? Right?
Well, I would say that the language definitely plays a big factor in the way we associate Lanang Helcom and Lanang Wen. Although I also think that given that a lot of the younger generation, especially the generation younger than me, I'm very surprised at the big decrease in Hokkien fluency.
I actually find it really surprising because from my end, it actually will serve the other reverse, right? Younger people, like, well, younger than me at least, like they're teenagers, I think they're actually getting more proficient in Hokkien, as in pure style Lanang way. Walang halo, like pure style. They're getting more proficiency, and maybe because of like a lot of like new initiatives right now on TikTok, on YouTube, so new social media. So I guess that also plays a role. That'll be the next kind of discussion. But yes, sorry. But I also want to bring back that discussion on like Lanang way itself, because like as we know, there's a lot of variation, a lot of variants of Lanang way. So do you think there is a need for us to standardize, right? Or yeah, because like that's something to be a concern. It's a trade-off, right? Like if people don't understand each other, then that makes things harder for us to be more coherent as a community, right?
The way I see it, I can only speak in terms of Metro Manila because I acknowledge that there are some maybe Chinese communities in the south that may slightly speak a different dialect. But in terms of Metro Manila, we definitely speak Xinjiang variant, Xingkang variant. And the varieties I talked about, the slight phonological differences, the slight vocab differences, I feel like they're very slight. They're not too big to inhibit communication. So if the question is to standardize it,
For education, for example.
I don't really see the need because even in Taiwan where you have a variety of different sub-dialects pronouncing it in different ways. I recently watched a news report in Facebook from Taiwan wherein they recently published a new textbook in Taigi, in Taiwanese Hokkien, for elementary school students. And then the way it's written is that it's very encompassing of all the variants existing in Taiwan. So I'm thinking that if they can do it like that, if ever we have variants, which is more minor than the variants they have in Taiwan, then there's no need to standardize it. We can just include everything that already exists right now.
In my case, I feel that a certain level of standardization is necessary because like the institution where I come from, in Ateneo, I think they offer parang Hokkien classes sometimes. So I don't handle those classes, pero it always makes me wonder, paano nga ba ituturo yung language if you don't have a certain level of standardization, di ba? But I feel like push aside the other variations, diba? But you know naman, politics of language. When you standardize something, some of the variants for the other languages will be other. Tapos yun, di ba, nagkakagigilan or whatever, di ba? So, in this case, di ba, parang maybe there is a way to standardize it to an extent, but also acknowledge those other variations. Like, kunyari, now when I talk to yung student that I mentioned kanina, sabi ko, yes, parang normally, or at least in my house, this is the way we say it, but I have heard of other people who use these variations. Something like that.
So it's more like inclusive then, no?
I guess, yeah.
Yes, there is a form that we can agree on, like using. It's similar to Filipino, like a standardized language. But then we should also like be more inclusive of other possible variants, I guess.
In my online dictionary, what I do is what I perceive as the more popular variant, I make it the main entry in the dictionary, and then it's listed under variants. You have other pronunciations. Then if you search the pronunciation, the variant pronunciation, it says a variant of this. So you can search the original one.
Would you like to tell us more about the dictionary? Because for me personally, I find it really, really useful.
So to anyone who wants to access it, it's not yet fully edited, but it has a big chunk of words, currently like 6,500 plus, and increasing pa rin. So the website is Hokkien Hub .vercel, that's vercel.app.
So it's in the program actually.
Yes.
So in one of the pages there'll be electronic resources. If I remember the first few pages, then you will be able to see certain links to some of the projects like Latin Stories, Latin Orthography, Latin Archives, and other community-driven initiatives like Hokkien.Hub.vercel.app. I'm not sure if it's there. It should be there. If not, we will send a link to everyone after the symposium.
Actually, I wanted to ask everyone's help because it's mostly me editing it. So what I told my developer is that before the symposium, I asked him to put a feedback form because I want everyone else's input. So if you log in with your Gmail account, then after you log in, you click your face, your profile, and then there's a window that will says feedback, and you can submit feedback. So if it helps me to make the dictionary better for everyone to use, since it's meant to be for public use, for anyone who wants to know more about Philippine Hokkien, how it's spoken in the Philippines.
So is there a survey link? So it's not a survey link, it's already embedded in the
Yeah, it's a feedback form that when you click it goes into our database.
Right. So okay, and now I remember. So the link that I was referring to is not in the program, but in the email, one of the emails I sent earlier, 3 days ago, 4 days ago. But we will resend it again if everyone is interested. And as Martin said, we probably need more feedback, more people to help us out in this initiative. I know they're not just Martin, but I think a lot of people. There's some people in the room I know who are also working on similar projects. So maybe it will take a more concerted effort. So any final words before we open the floor to the public for some questions?
I think we have questions.
Okay, so let's take some questions. So we have microphones everywhere. I think where are the microphones? Oh, they're with us. But if you can, yeah. So I see one hand over there in the back. Charles? Yeah.
Hello. So you mentioned a while ago that there are a lot of variants, right, in words, in phonology, and whatsoever. When do you start realizing that, let's say, I mean, hindi man natin maiwasan na there are certain groups or families that they've used a corrupted version of a certain word, right? So, ano yung extent kung ano yung accept mo na like a possible variant of a certain certain word or phrase, and excluding it from let's say the dictionary.
So actually, I have an answer to this question because I acknowledge that there may be cases wherein one person learns it wrongly, maybe from their parents, and it's only that person. And sometimes it happens. Like there are times wherein I sometimes question the way my parents pronounce certain words. Then I try to see if other families also pronounce it the same way. I try to find whether is it just my my father or my mother, or is it other families also? And if I find someone who says it like this, and then I can't find anyone else who says it like this, I'm most likely going to ignore that variation. But if I find a variant, and then I find several other people or several other families that say the same thing, and then it's parang for me it's validated. It's going to be part of the dictionary.
Wow, I learned a lot.
my so I kind of I'm from the other camp. I would say like I think that all variation is legitimate, basically. So even if let's say a family acquires it differently from other people, I still think that's Lanang way, if you want to call it, right? It's just a different version, different style of way of speaking or expressing. If you can't just, for me, Lanang personally, it's just my sense, is that everyone can claim to be a Lanang, basically, you through their use of Lanang way. So even if it's, I don't really believe in correct or wrong language. It's just a matter of difference, of variation, your own set of experiences and cultural experiences that determine how we use. And we also know there's individual variation in the Like how I use Lanang could be different from you.
Yes.
But we do see some commonalities, right? Which I think is what makes the Lanang way, right? To some extent. So, any more questions? Who's gonna? I think I saw some hands there at the back end. Yeah. So earlier.
So this is just a bit of a question, but like, so you know how Tagalog has kami and tayo, right? And Hokkien has kun, lan. Do you think that distinction, that inclusive versus exclusive us, is a potential influence from Tagalog into Hokkien or vice versa? Like, does Singapore also have that distinction?
I don't think so. Inclusivity appears in so many languages around the world, and it's not likely that a big grammatical part of the language is borrowed from Tagalog, Hokkien, and vice versa.
It's more coincidental in this case because there are a lot of languages that have an us versus like us and us get together, right? Tayo and kami, just us, exclusive and inclusive us, right? So yeah. Let me answer your question.
Like, the Singaporean Hokkien, does Taiwanese Hokkien also have kun and lan and yala?
Yeah. As far as I know, all Hokkien dialects have the kun and lan difference.
What about Cantonese and Mandarin? Because like, I couldn't find any for Mandarin.
No. Yeah. No. I don't, sorry. I forgot. Northern Mandarin has that distinction. So for Northern Mandarin, for example, in Beijing, there's a distinction between Zaman and woman. So Zaman is tayo, woman exclusively means kami. So that's the difference.
It's the same character, right? For
Yeah, it's the same.
So we still have some time. So Raha and then Misha. Okay, let's go with Raha first.
For Marvin, can I ask for that? Like, what are, like for your dictionary, like what's going to be its strategy?
You can check it right now.
So while Raha is checking, Misha has a question.
So hi, actually I just wanted to ask about the grammatical rules. Like, since like we're talking about like Lanang and because at times, like, we would follow, like me, my first language is English, so the way I would speak Lanang somehow follows a bit of an English grammatical rule. And since we're talking about standardization, is there a consensus on which grammatical rules are we following? Is it more leaning towards, like, the Chinese, or is it leaning towards, like, Filipino or English, or are we incorporating all three?
To answer your question, so let's use the Tingkang as starting point. So let's imagine our ancestors coming from Tingkang, immigrating to the Philippines. They already spoke Hokkien in their own way. So I would use that as a base. As in, that's for me, a standard which we should apply. I know there's a tendency these days of Tingkang people, because they, especially younger ones, because they know Mandarin, they try to apply sometimes Mandarin style talking to their Hokkien. I wouldn't consider that as currently as part of our Lanang because it's there. But
maybe eventually, because a lot of mainlanders are immigrating here, they're having children, and they speak the Tingkang Hokkien with the Mandarin influence. Eventually, that might become the grammar of Lanang Way, as fewer people speak our style of Hokkien. But the Hokkien that we speak, having gone through several generations, I would say, does have some slight influence of local languages. And the most common example I would say is the ba particle, which is the question particle, which I would say is part of the grammar. So, answering your question, I would say that Lanang Way has that base of the Tingkang Hokkien accent, while at the same time incorporating elements in the Philippines. Which one would I say is the Lanang Way? For me, it's a consensus. It's like, for me, it's asking for example, our elders, if it sounds okay, for me, if it sounds okay to majority of our elders, then that's how we say it. But it evolves. It evolves.
Okay, challenge na ako. I agree. So your stance is basically, yes, Lanang Way has this basis. We can have the standard, the Tingkang Hokkien standard, right? But for me personally, like for a lot of people, like for me, I'm 5th gen Lanang already. So I don't think we need to follow a standard from outside. Like we can technically create our own standard. So for me, I think English is, I'm more proficient in English, I guess, compared to Tagalog and Hokkien. But I think also like Nisha, I hear your question, I think you're more English proficient than your English native language here. So I would not really look to, I don't regard Tingkang Hokkien as like a standard, although I know and I recognize that it is the dominant variant being used in the Philippines, the Hokkien variant in the Philippines. So for me, like that's one of the reasons why I actually also intentionally use, like you remember the opening speech, I used a very, very mixed version of Lanang Way. It's very intentional because that's how I was raised, and that's how I would hear from people, from church people, from my friends, and that's how they speak, right? So yeah.
I'm coming from I guess a teaching perspective. If I were to teach something to my students, I wanted something that everyone would say is correct. No one would say, ay, hindi yan tama. So the Tingkang base is sort of that.
It's more in that context, right?
Yeah, in that context of teaching, because standardization is all about, through passing it down to teaching.
Okay, so we have a follow-up, really quick follow-up from
grammar. Because Misha's question is of grammar. So do you accept using the Filipinized grammar? Like the young kids, when they speak, do you correct them when they say, aalis na ako? They say, kilo ba? Tiyago ba? Tiyago ba? Will you correct them? Tiyago ba? You hear that everywhere. In Bisaya, mulakaw na ko. Mulakaw na ko.
In cases like those, because I'm coming from the teaching perspective, I make my student aware that this exists, but I would say that the more traditional way is this, but people also say this, so be aware when you encounter it in the wild. That's how I would do it.
Alright, so let's give some opportunity to other people who have not yet raised their question. I think one at the back has been raising this for a very, very long time. I'm so sorry. Maybe 1 minute, and then another minute for Ivan.
Hello. Firstly, I really love the discussion of Lanang Way through the linguistic and anthropological nuancing. But more importantly, both discourse intersects on pointing out the effectivity of the education system in sustaining Lanang Way. As someone who came from Zamboanga City, the far south of Mindanao, we are called Southeast by other Lanang here, we're thankful that both Hokkien and Chinese is taught in schools. But many Lanang thinks that it's no longer practical to learn, or even to some people who are stuck in diaspora, it's nothing but a dead language. With boring and traditional teaching methods, for example, many of us students have survived by sitak, by memorizing as many phrases, as many characters, para pagdating ng exam, kabisado namin anong lalabas sa quiz. Pero as in representing those coming from the diaspora, For example, as a multilingual, as a Chavacano speaker, whose Bisaya is far more fluent than Tagalog and English, we also have to bear the Lanang crisis in terms of identity. But at the expense of othering, for example, in the Chinese government, the Taiwanese Ministry of Education, the government has a pivotal part in sustaining the Lanang residency. The Miss Universe question is, in a country like the Philippines, where the education system has failed us, the community, what educational policy would the two of you would at least suggest, kung gaya na dito si Sara Duterte at hindi siya nag-resign, would you suggest to help revive and sustain the language na bukas kaagad ay i-approve ng buong bansang Pilipinas? Thank you.
I'll take a question from Gloria Diaz na lang. Kidding aside, well, okay, policy kasi, I think that's a different sector altogether, di ba? Kasi sa policy, educational policies, syempre leaning more towards a Filipino educational policy siya rather than the diaspora. But I feel to sort of find a middle ground is to look at the associations or institutions rather that, and I think there are many of those educational institutions or inter-educational institutions that can have dialogues with each other to see how they can maybe improve their methods of teaching, their pedagogy, lalo na when it comes to kunyari mga provincial na Chinese schools, di ba, maybe how to make resources more accessible to them. I think that's an issue that I hear from some of my friends na Chinoy who come from the provinces. Kasi mas konti doon, mas maliit. My dad is Chinoy but from Ilocos. So in Vigan, there is a very, very small Chinese school there. That is a problem that I hear na meron yung mga current students nila. And my dad also studied there, I think, in grade school. So parang more than the policy, lalo na medyo complicated kasi yung educational policy in relation to the Chinese school. So yeah, medyo complicated. So I feel to go around with that is to look at the proper institutions, educational and inter-educational ones within the diaspora kasi mas alam nila yung problems within the community. So I think they can respond more and then they can work with the government, diba, sa DepEd or whatever, to maybe formalize some of those policies that are more sensitive to the needs of the diaspora.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but we do have a panel on language, language and policy in education. So yeah, we have a panel on that. So for those who haven't had a chance to raise their questions, please attend that panel. All right, so for now, we would like to thank our two panel opening presenters.